Ready? I'm so nervous.
Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast, the podcast where I remember what I am doing.
And I freak out about everything I say.
My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm some guy.
And every week we listen to some music from some games that we sometimes enjoyed at one point in our lives.
That's the sticky wicket.
That's how we do it. No, every week we listen to great video game music from the past and the present, and from all consoles and all generations of consoles. We just listen to everything. We just pick a topic, and we dive into it.
And it's a fun time to which to do that, too, honestly. Feels nice, nostalgic, fun, vibrant, sunny, not quite tepid, warm.
It was a nice day out today. Come on.
It really has been. Like, it's sunny, and I'm still trying, even at this late stage of my life, I'm still trying to determine what that perfect temperature is to be outside in. Like, not too warm that you're sweating all the time, but not too cold that you have to bundle up. And, like, I got in my car this morning, it was 59 degrees on the thermostat in the car, and I was like, this is way too cold, I better go get a coat. And I went and got myself, like, a hoodie or whatever, and then got to my destination, got out, and immediately took the hoodie right back off. I was like, "What? This is fine. Like, this is good weather."
We are in that in-between phase of like, what am I going to wear? But we're getting so close to the cold weather that I can go ahead and run in the morning. It's like 40 degrees in the morning. I can just run
but
for hours.
But I do have one nice perk that I didn't realize until now, which is both a detriment but also not too bad. So last month, in August, we had a tornado come through, and one of the unfortunate side effects of that tornado is like a really cool tree that was in my backyard got taken out by the tornado. So there's no longer a tree back there. Downside, of course, is that now I don't have that canopy to provide shade, and it doesn't look as nice anymore, and I lose the privacy that the tree gave me too. The positive, though, is that raking leaves will be borderline non-existent this fall.
That's right.
Because I have no tree dropping leaves in the yard. So that should be interesting. I might even be able to just get rid of my rake entirely. This will be a trip. Because, like, put in perspective, I used to fill, like, 30 bags of leaves for just a small backyard.
That's what happened when we got rid of that tree in our corner. That's just tree talk with Robin Purnell. No, it was dying, and so we had to take it down, but, like, it was dropping so many leaves our first year. It was just overwhelming. And so now it's just a nice little garden of flowers.
Fennel.
And fennel. Lots of fennel.
Delicious fennel.
Lots of bugs. Lots of good little bugs. And then the storms came and knocked everything down.
Brought to you by the Fire Nation.
But yeah, right?
So, like, any games that you've been playing as of late? Anything?
What have I been playing? I haven't been playing anything. I've been wanting to get back into Crosscode a little bit, and I think that's lost me entirely. So I'm just waiting for some time where I can just dive into a new RPG, which would be...
I'm looking at them.
Starts with a P, ends with an A.
Starts with a P, ends with an Ernona.
Ends with an Ursona.
Finally!
I will get into that, yeah.
It took the Chris Murray backup to finally convince him to try it.
No, I've been listening to a lot of music on my downtime. I've been listening to a lot of Falcom music, actually.
The Falcom music is stuff. It's just stuff, man.
Like, I haven't played those games, but like Trails music and Legend of Heroes, all that stuff. It's just so much fun. Good music.
I'm officially gonna make a playlist in Spotify for workout music, specifically related to Falcom, because it hit me. A couple days ago, I went to exercise, and the person was disconnecting all the stuff for the night because they thought no one was going to show up, and then boom, Purnell shows up and ruins their evening, as I do. And
ruins their evening?
Oh, yeah, because that's me preventing them from leaving 30 minutes earlier.
Oh, I see.
Because if I show up, they can't close the doors. They got to let me exercise, and then they got to clean up after me again, and then they can go home.
Right.
So
You're that guy.
I'm that guy. I'm the awful guy, and I'm fine with it. But since they didn't have their usual music thing set up to play anymore, they're like, well, what do you want to listen to? And they had the Spotify up, and I was like, I don't have a playlist to direct you to, so we'll just play Ease 8. Just because she's like, what?
Just all of Ease 8.
Just put Ease 8 on, and then put it on, and she starts playing. It starts with, of course, Sunshine Coastline. She's like, oh, this sounds like a good thing for, like,
oh, man,
exercise is high tempo. I'm like, yes. But then as they switch tracks, it gets like a mellow like campsite theme. He's like, this isn't exercise. It's like, well, yeah, because I didn't make a playlist.
Yeah.
But it'll change. Don't worry.
Oh, do you just let it go?
Just let it run. Every once in a while, though, she would actually walk over and skip a track if it seemed too low tempo. I was like, wow, she's invested in this OST now.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, she got to listen to it, too. But, oh, yeah, Sunshine Coastline is just one of the best. One of the best. I think it was my best of last year list. It
belongs there.
It's so good.
It's just...
It comes on, and I'm like, oh, that's right. This is good.
It's honestly one of the Falcom sound team's best tracks they've ever composed, as far as I'm concerned.
I do love that song.
But like aside from that, like I'm all over the place with the games as I tend to be. But there's one that I'm going to be reviewing next week that I can't really get into because embargoes, but I can at least bring up what it is. And the game is called Going Under. It may not end up being a great game, I don't know yet, but what I do know is the theme is pretty cool, which is that you are an intern going to work at a company called Fizzle, which specializes in flavored carbonated waters. And by flavors, I mean like Szechuan sauce and Thanksgiving dinner, like a la Jones's.
Yeah, those Crazy Jones sodas that you used to drink. Yeah.
And as an intern there, like your job becomes... going into dungeons and killing monsters. And it makes no sense. But the idea is that, the premise in the world is that failed corporations get sent under. They get sent to the dungeons or they become demons? They become the dungeons and the demons. Like that's what happens to failed corporations in this weird dystopian society.
Oh, that sounds cool.
And all the weapons that you use, for the most part, are office theme based.
I was going to say, are they like the stapler of power?
There actually is a stapler. Like you take the stapler,
a broad stapler, like a broadsword.
No, it starts out as a giant stapler, and when you carry it around like you're hugging it, and when you press it in, you fire staples until it runs out, and you start smacking with the stapler.
Is it like an action game or?
Oh, action! And you run around, you beat the dudes up, clear the room, open the sets of rooms.
I'm gonna look that up. That sounds really funny.
I've been laughing at it. I like the premise of it a lot, but I can't wait to actually do the full reviewing because I think it's the kind of game where it's like where do you find creativity in a genre that's been beat to death? And it's like, well, there you go. This is some weird mess. I'll play that. I've been playing that, and I'm about to start this one game for review also where you are a girl who's going to like a prep school, and she's in a D&D club.
Okay, that sounds wholesome.
Oh, it is. It's actually surprisingly wholesome. And there's like a bunch of like interactions that take place in the school. And you're making friends and stuff, but all the interactions ends up becoming like D&D battles. Oh. So like all the kids have classes and stuff like that. It seems cool to me, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, that's good.
So, and then lastly, worth mentioning, I actually bought it. I'm looking forward to starting it. I wasn't going to buy it at first, but almost too well placed PC Gamer article drew me to it. It's a game called Paradise Killer. And the idea and the reason why I bought it with the interest of giving it a chance is because their description was that it is them taking a crack at the detective game genre in a way that no one else has ever done it. And the description gives me the impression that they are succeeding at that as long as it's good. So what is it? Well, it's a guy who's inspired by the Danganronpa series. He designed a game where you're presented with an environment that you can explore, and there's a murder mystery. However, there's tons of evidence you can locate and file and stuff. Colorful characters you can talk to. But you can accuse anybody you want, however you want, as long as you have the evidence to back it up. And there are ways to do it in a way where you'll be like, okay, this guy had to have done it because I have this stuff.
So you have all this evidence, but maybe some of it's false, or maybe you don't have the right evidence. Oh, that's interesting.
You might be missing something, but you thought you had the case together.
Can you imagine the writing on a game like that? Like how many different branching paths?
Right? And that's what intrigued me. It's like, cool. It's worth buying. And then during the article, they also made a comment where the guy was like, we burned through our savings account, so it's a good thing we found a publisher. They clearly were invested in this game so much that I'm like, I want to give this a chance. I'm not even going to wait for it to go on sale. I'm just going to buy it.
I like that.
So I want to try this game, and I hope to have an understanding of it within another week or two.
That's exciting.
So that's the kind of stuff I look forward to.
So before we get started, I want to say that our next live stream episode is going to be for our Patreon listeners. There's a little static, I'm sorry. For our Patreon listeners, it's going to be, if it's okay with you, Pernell, Thursday, October 1st.
Should be fine, I think.
Okay. It's Thursday, October 1st, and our theme is going to be
I don't think we have one.
I don't think we have one yet, but we're going to come up with one, and we're going to talk about it at some other time.
Maybe by the end of the episode. I got to think about it.
Yeah, we'll think about it some more, but but we'll have a theme.
So originally, I'm not going to lie, I wanted to just double dip on Smash because the last one was so fun.
We might do that again.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was our last live show was a whole lot of fun. Are you hearing that static too?
A little poppily.
Little pops? Yeah, something's happening. That's okay. We're going to let it go. We're going to let it all go for now. So this week, we are talking about influences. Not influential classics, but the games that influenced us or during influential times in our lives personally.
And I'll be blunt. It was originally inspired by a meme that's been going around by a guy on Twitter where he originally postured it as, pick influential games from your childhood or youth or teen years, but not pretentious crap or something. And I was like, well, I'm going to cut the last part out because I don't care about that. And I just want to talk about influential games. Now, it's interesting, too, because I took the question and put it on my Facebook page, and a lot of people answered it. And I really wish that some of the people put more details in regards to why they chose their answers, because while some did and others didn't, the vibe I was getting is that people took influential to mean different things. Like, some people were like, I picked this game because it's so fun. Or, I picked this game because, it's really popular. And I'm sitting there thinking, but that's not... How is that influential in the sense of just being popular? Like, there has to be more than that. There's tons of popular games, but is it truly influential? Is it influential to you, or is it influential to the industry as a whole? Like, where are you coming from here? So it's... I think it's an interesting topic that's worth discussing beyond just, here are my favorite games.
Right. And in our last episode of Influential Classics, we also touched on games that influenced the genre or influenced the industry in some way. But this one's more of like a personal thing. Another thing that's been going around on Twitter that I saw was people would post like video game maps or stages, and they would just say, I grew up here. And I think it was Carlos. He posted just the map of Symphony of the Night, this huge castle map, and it says, I grew up here.
The castle,
that was funny.
It makes me want to look at that now, because I know I can say, without even thinking about other stuff, that the Symphony of the Night map is extremely influential and inspiring to folks just by virtue of the whole inverted element that you can acquire later in the game. Like, everyone talked about that back in the day. It was not a niche thing. That was a playground topic.
I mean, the other thing was just the scale of the game. I mean, at a time when everything was 3D, everything was a 3D adventure game or a 3D RPG, but everything was in 3 dimensions. And then here comes Symphony of the Night, side-scrolling.
We're still 2D. We still got it.
Super fast action. It's in 2 dimensionals. It's two dimensions, but it's just enormous. Like a huge place to explore, which I never finished because I'm not good.
And of course, it was also the trigger for that generic, that Metroidvania line, which is funny. But aside from just that term, believe it or not, at least unless I'm forgetting something, aside from Metroid at the time, I can't think of too many games that were 2D with interconnected maps. Like, there were always stages. But it was rarely, here's an interconnected map you can explore. There was like things like Legacy of the Wizard and things like, but it was a non-common thing. So to see 2D interconnected maps in a new game that was high profile was awesome.
Yeah, it was like, it's in the Castlevania world, but it doesn't play like the kind of, not clunky, but slower plotting, more strategic, like of the NES classic series. But I digress. We're going to start with some music that I think you're going to enjoy, Pernell, very much. This is from... Well, I should probably pull up my list, right? I'm going to start... No, okay, you might enjoy this.
Street Fighter 2!
So, yeah, I'll say that. I did not play any Street Fighter music. I will, however, because these games played a big part in my life and my later teenage years, I guess. This is from the King of Fighters 99 for the Neo Geo. This is a track called Tears, and it is composed by Hideki Asanaka from the SNK Sound team, and he is credited as SHA-V. Or I guess SHA-V or SHA-V.
SHA-V!
That's probably how that's the Japanese pronunciation. SHA-V. All right, this is Tears. listening to the track Tears. This is the theme of Kyo Kusanagi from The King of Fighters 99 for the Neo Geo, composed by SHA-V, or credited as SHA-V. The composer is Hideki Asanaka.
Now, this track gives me a lot of, like... I was at first, I was like, goofily as it may sound, it did remind me of Street Fighter 2, but also a bit of Mega Man X. Like, I'm not quite sure if I'm like just like projecting the thought based on the thought of you picking Street Fighter originally, but I genuinely get those vibes from this.
I think this section right here, because it's kind of a fakey guitar sound that once I hear it, I'm like, oh, Mega Man X.
Mega Man X.
Mega Man X.
Cardi sees it.
Yeah, but Dog's going nuts. But yeah, no, so this was a time, I guess I was still working at the arcade, and I was playing a lot of fighting games. Actually, all I was doing was playing fighting games. And I think that's all I was doing with my life at the time. And it was, I don't know if it was healthy. I don't think I was surrounding myself with the healthiest of people. I think you know that. But it was just, I was really, really into it. And KOF 98 was what we were playing on the Sega Dreamcast. That was one. I don't think it was a launch title, but it was really early in the launch of the Sega Dreamcast. And then when 99 came out the following year, I heard that it was at Chinatown Fair in New York City. And so a whole bunch of us, we just got up and just spent the day and drove to New York City and found Chinatown Fair and found this game.
And that to me is an interesting adventure because for those who aren't familiar with the labyrinthine nature of New York City, it's wild. If you're not from a big city initially and you just like kind of drop yourself into New York, it's insane. It may as well be an RPG dungeon.
It was crazy trying to find this place. In a time before, like, really before Google Maps and for any of that stuff, before cell phones had that capability, we were just sort of like picking out on the map. Like, we knew about where in Chinatown it was, but then we had to figure out how to get to Chinatown. And then we had to find the arcade. We were asking people, we were walking down the street being like, hey, where's the arcade at? Where's this place at?
And having been there myself, I can say it was like a literal hole in the wall.
It was.
So it does not stick out.
It was incredible walking into that place for the first time. That was definitely, like, when people talk about this arcade and like its status in the fighting game community and the arcade scene in general, like it makes sense because they had everything that was new. They had the people who went there were passionate about what they were playing, whether it was shoot 'em ups, whether it was fighting games, or even rhythm games later on in its history. It was so dark and dirty, and
it could have been if smoking was prohibited or permitted indoors. I could see it even be filled with cigar smoking, like people drinking and stuff.
Absolutely, filled with like cigarettes and whatever kind of other kind of smoke you would imagine.
But I'll be honest, as a person who doesn't smoke and never did, there was still something about those environments that I kind of liked. It was like this grimy, like element of like just walking in. It's like, you down for a game?
Yes,
yeah, I'm in for a game. I'm ready to win.
It's just, I don't know. It was, and it wasn't like, there's something different about walking into a place like this, which was really like a classic arcade from its heyday, as to walking into maybe
like a Dave & Buster's,
or like one of those like family entertainment centers, or like a bowling alley that hasn't been updated since like 1984 and is like disgusting. And you're like, there's something scary about a place like that. You see, like,
it's mainstream, but it lacks a passion.
Yeah, but like, and also like it's dirty, but like you can see like maybe Showbiz Pizza, or like that kind of like those kinds of like paintings and ephemera on the walls, but it's all dirty and it's been like left there forever.
Yeah.
Arcades in the malls, and we used to go try to find DDR machines. It always felt like that. It felt sad. You walk in there and there's kids there, but it felt sad.
It's like a tomb. Like Chinatown Fair was being run by someone who cared. Even though, like I said, we talked about earlier, like it could have been like dirty enough to have like cigar smoke and stuff, like had the grime. But the people who ran the place cared about the product. Right. So they kept the machines up to date. They kept them well maintained. So you knew you were coming into an environment where the games you were playing were up to snuff.
Yeah, and it attracted the players who knew what they were doing. And so if you went there enough, then you were going to get better too. And so
versus going to like a timeout and you walk in there, and it's like to see a new game is almost lucky. Like, wait a minute, someone cared enough to bother.
Yeah, like I was really devoting like a lot of time into trying to get better at these things, and going to places like these arcades and having these experiences really enforced that within my bubble, within my circle, I thought I was good. And I think everyone's kind of experienced this in some way or heard of this kind of experience, but you think you're good because you can beat your friends. But then you go out someplace to where there's a competition or where there's other players and they know something you don't. And it's like, oh, I am actually crap at these things. I am no good.
And I can say this too, because I just remembered something from my past, like in regards to like the arcade rant from before. Like I can imagine there might be someone listening to this right now going like, well, I worked at arcades in the past and I love the art. Well, I gotta say, you wouldn't be the person I'm referring to in this instance. And the good example would be back when I got into Pump It Up. It was at Kahunaville, which was like a themed, a family line of arcades
that's what I'm thinking
and stuff.
Of. When that was going down, like when that place was winding down, it was kind of grimy and creepy. GameWorks in South Philly.
But here's the sad thing about that, though.
That building is still
I
there.
was friends, not like just have a drink and hang out friends, but like he would come in, we'd be like gab and have fun. Like the arcade attendant that worked, the guy would come in and maintain the machines. And we used to always tell him, like, hey man, we trying to get, updated pump versions. Can you fix the pads? And he was into it too. Like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. Or if you can give me some info on what this version is and how much it would cost, I could put, kick it up to my superiors and maybe we could do something. But the problem was the superiors didn't care. They were like, the machines work, people were putting money in. Why are we updating anything? That just costs money we don't need to spend.
Yeah, there was a time when I was working at the arcades, like we were actively looking for newer stuff. When people said something was broken, we had technicians on staff, and myself included. We would just fix stuff as they broke. But then it seemed that years and years later, the arcades that were still around, it didn't matter anymore if things broke down.
Yep.
If it was just there, and if it was turned on, then it was essentially working. At the end of the week, they would collect coins or whatever from the machines. As long as it was still generating something,
that's all that mattered.
Then they assumed it was working. Whether all the people put a coin in the machine and then like it didn't work at all, it still counted as a coin.
Yep.
And so
the jump button doesn't work. Whatever, they're playing it.
That stuff really frustrated me. Like, but the amount of work that goes into doing that stuff, though, like it kind of makes sense that if the industry as a whole wasn't generating enough revenue to stay alive, like they wouldn't have that money to hire technicians to do it full time. Like
that's true.
The arcade near us, which sadly is closed down due to COVID, that guy could barely keep things going,
and he was able to fix stuff himself.
Yeah, it was just him and maybe him and somebody else, but like it was too much to keep track.
Yeah.
There's a place in Ephrata. I don't know if they're going to survive. I hope they survive. But that's all he does. Is he works on the circuit boards, on the video units. Like incredible amount of detailed work. I mean, I don't know how that's gonna play out.
It's definitely a frustrating time for like that environment, the arcade environment, and those areas where getting together is a requirement. Like there's no getting around it.
Yeah. So this was an influential piece for me because also King of Fighters 99 is when they changed their costuming and they look all modern.
Now I've got zippers and chains.
Yeah, I was into that stuff. It was cool, and the music was great too. It was so unique. It wasn't like this wasn't Capcom music. This was definitely SNK music.
Oh yeah,
it was really cool. All right, so what's your first pick?
Well, I'm going to be honest, and at least to give people the advance notice that the tracks, not the tracks, but the games, you're going to hear me name the games and go, well, of course he'd say that, but that's just the type of episode this is.
That's what we're doing today.
So this first track comes from the obvious, let's go with the first easy one. We'll go with Super Mario Bros. 3, and this is the Skyland theme from Super Mario Bros. 3, and it's composed by Koji Kondo. Welcome back. You are listening to the Skyland map theme from the game Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES, composed by Koji Kondo. And I swear one of these days I'm going to just make a medley of every map theme because despite how short they all are, many of them are some of the best tracks the game actually has.
I know, but let's just have a moment. Just a moment of silence for the opening percussion because the rest of the track doesn't really change a whole lot. So I love it. I love classic NES games when they've got sampled sounds, like Nintendo produced games, because I feel like it was all Konami, it was all like Sunsoft doing sampled sounds. But this is in Super Mario Brothers, man. Here you go. There it is.
Like the drum.
Like that's all you get. I love it.
Honestly, like it's kind of cool in its own right because off the top, maps aren't really, in this game at least, they're more so meant to be short trips. Like, you just go 2 nodes across and enter the next stage. But every once in a while, you'd be the kid who would just let the thing loop and lap and just run indefinitely because it just clicks. Like, Winter Wonderland was another one that I really liked from this game. But the idea of Mario 3, I can't fathom an episode where, if I'm focusing on my childhood, an episode where Mario 3 does not get referenced as being most influential because of just for a number of reasons, really. But first was just the general pandemonium that the game generated.
Yeah, I didn't even have a Nintendo, and like it was huge. It was enormous. Everyone talked about it.
Everyone talked about it. It was like all the kids' meal toys. There was tons of merch based around it. There was an entire movie produced where the hook for the movie was you can see 5 minutes of this game running throughout the 2-hour runtime of the film. Like, it was big, and people were going to the movie just to see the game. They didn't even care about.
Would you say it was Video Armageddon?
Maybe Mario Mania.
Mario Mania is what it was.
They did a Hands Across the World commercial for it, where it was just like kids chanting Mario, and they formed the face of Mario on the planet Earth. It was ridiculous, and we had money. We didn't have a ton of money growing up. We had enough to get by, and we had our few games that we could play, and we didn't have any expectations of getting Mario 3 because, quite frankly, you didn't think the money was there. But we talked about it like crazy. Nintendo Power released this issue that detailed it, and it's talking about here the maps for the first like 2 worlds, like Desert Land and Grassland, and I would just read that to the point where the pages got all frayed and just beaten up. So one day, my mom picks us up, my brother and I, from my Grammy's house. She used to babysit us while she was at work and we got home from school. And when we get home, she had gone to the grocery store prior to picking us up. So there's like a bunch of grocery bags in the car. And she goes, hey, would you guys be able to go out to the car, like go back to the car and bring the groceries in? And we're like, okay, sure, no problem. So we're picking up the bags and bag after bag after bag. And then we get to that one bag that seems a little different and not quite grocery-like. And open it up. Boom, there's this yellowish orange box sitting there. There's a raccoon man on the front. It's Mario 3. And my brother and I unilaterally freak the heck out. Now, keep in mind, my brother and I have different tastes in video games for the most part, even back then. So for us both to be collectively excited for the same game speaks volumes in and of itself. Ran in the house, hugged, kissed her mom. Then we ran upstairs,
so nice.
Plugged the card in, got to town, was obsessed with Mario 3. And just the first part, like just the element of the fact that my mom was able to surprise us in such a way. Like, she went through the trouble, because back then games weren't particularly cheap either. Like $60 in that currency, that was a lot of money.
It was, yeah.
So she bought that game for us when she didn't have a ton of money to be thrown around. And then when we were playing it, for that time period also, it gave us this weird impression of like just how awesome secret hunting in a game like this could be. Because you had Mario 2 with the subcon dump into a tube to go to a warp, and you had Mario 1 with running across the top of the screen to go to some pipes. But none of that touched some of the crap that Mario 3 had you doing. Dropping into the background of the stage to get a whistle. Some of the places you could go to get like secret pipe warp elements.
Yeah.
Secret elements on the map itself where you could go to find like a secret hammer brother to get this cool power up.
I feel like with the innovations of this game, it wasn't just like how many it wasn't just like what technological innovations could they do. It was like how much they could fit into this game.
Yeah.
Even in as playing it 2-player, you can play versus mode against each other if you landed on the same spot.
Yeah, and we got addicted to doing that.
Which was classic Mario Brothers, like the original classic arcade game Mario Brothers, which is so brilliant that they snuck that into the game.
And we got aggressive. Like, if you went to a level that someone else wanted to do and you finished it so that they couldn't go back, you better believe you were going to that Mario Brothers game and getting stopped.
And also a Mario Brothers game where you had a world map and you can select the stage you want to go to next. That's huge. Again,
themed worlds.
All the different themes of the worlds. The fact that the game wasn't just side scrolling, it was full horizontal side scrolling. You can go backwards.
Yep.
Which you couldn't do before.
In Mario 2, you could.
But
in Mario 1, you couldn't.
In Mario 2, there was vertical scrolling, but the screen would have to
actually jump up a scroll.
You would have to. It wasn't a full scroll. It was like it was from level to level.
Yeah.
But this was full vertical scrolling, which I don't think was done on the Nintendo up to that point.
Now you got me wondering, but I think you may well be correct there, because I don't remember any games prior to that where you could just go up.
But you're right, like all of the extra secrets, all of the extra little bits that like they took care to add into the game, it's a masterpiece of gaming.
And I genuinely, and I say this all the time, but people like to tell me, Mario World was like the pinnacle of like game design for platforms. Like, I think Mario 3 was that. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, Mario World had a more elaborate map, but Mario 3 did the maps in a way that even though you didn't have like an entirely secret route you could take, you still had secret areas you could go to and find.
Different paths you can do. It's fun as watching speedrunners now. Like they select how to do their paths, and they anticipate where like the Hammer Brother battles, like extra battles like in the game. Like that's unheard of.
Yeah. And I stand to that belief, like Mario 3 hits both influential in my life as far as like the platforms I look into. Like, hell, even now, if you were to say, Pernell, this new platform game came out, or this new adventure game came out, my first thing's going to be, where are the power-ups? Mario 3 did that.
Mario 3 did that.
Mario 3 did that.
It wasn't just the fire flower anymore. You had the frog suit. You had the Tanuki suit. All that stuff.
And when Mario World came out, it was like, you get a cape. I'm like, what else? It's like Yoshi. I'm like, where are the power-ups? It's just the cape.
I feel like with World, it was all about the Yoshi. They were trying to create this whole new ecosystem environment for Mario. All right, so yeah.
No, I'll stop ranting. I'll be talking about Mario 3 all bloody day.
No, we could. We absolutely could. I think you did a podcast on Mario, right?
Yeah, on Broken Cartridges. The episode itself isn't out yet, but we did an episode specifically about Super Mario Brothers 1. And we were like, how could we possibly talk an entire episode about just Super Mario Brothers 1 of all games? And we did. We somehow pulled it off, and it actually felt pretty engaging because I was getting goofy about it.
Well, if you want to know more about that, check out if you. I don't think you have Netflix, or if you do, but on Netflix there's a special called High Score, which is like the history of games. The first episode is before it's like the Atari and pre-NES era in the arcades. So it's kind of like it kind of leads up to the video game crash of like the 80s.
Okay.
And then the second episode is all about how Nintendo picks it up, and it's their marketing strategy of how they kind of got themselves into the American market with Nintendo, and all about how they designed the systems, all about how they got people interested in Mario, like in department stores, by having people play the game in department stores and stuff. And that was my introduction to that.
And it makes sense too, because if I think back past Nintendo even, like other game systems started doing, like that's how the Philips CDI tried to get into people's homes. They had like, I remember the Boss Guys, there was like a whole Philips CDI system set up in the front with a guy like, you want to try the Philips CDI?
Exactly. Yeah, it was like it was the kind of marketing of like not guerrilla marketing, but it was definitely like in your face, like you need to see this.
Nowadays, you're not going to see. I mean, they do have the visual display, but you don't have a thing. I don't typically recall seeing to me like, you want to play the new PS4?
Yeah,
Come on over and play. It's just just buy it.
They used to have that at Best Buy, but like honestly, I remember at Best Buy they used to have like Guitar Hero and stuff set up, and I would just go there on lunch breaks, and I would just play Guitar Hero and get really good at it.
I think that's still one of my later favorite memories. Like, and actually, if we ever did an influential episode where I focused on like my later life, that would likely be on there. But I remember going to like a game like Best Buy, and they had Guitar Hero 3 set up. That was with my friend Tim, and I just took the guitar and picked Even Flow from Pearl Jam and just started railing it off like vocally, like in this sort of like, like just getting into it. People were stopping and looking, and Tim was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is fun. I can be stupid. I don't live in this state. I can be as dumb as I want.
No one knows me.
No one knows me here. I'm going to yell and scream."
That's funny.
It was hilarious.
All right, so I'm gonna take us back to 1998, maybe 99. So I want to play the track from one of my favorite puzzle games.
Do your best Eddie Vedder
ever. I'm gonna play my first best puzzle game. First move. No. This is don't call me PlayStation Rimiko. Horiuchi's the composer. This is from the game, one of my favorite puzzle games ever. This is Bust a Move, the fourth installment, Bust a Move 4. for the Sony PlayStation, and this is the theme of Tam-Tam. When you play versus mode in this game, there's only 2 themes. There's the theme for everybody else, and then there's the theme for Tam-Tam.
Never understood that.
In story mode, there's a few other songs where there's like a boss fight, there's different puzzle modes, like 1 or 2, and then there's the theme for Tam-Tam. So whenever we pick this character, it's almost
like an event.
It's because you needed a change, because we played this so much. So this is the theme of Tam-Tam from Bust a Move 4. Oh my god. I remember this part of that. That's coming up.
There it is. Did it. Oh my gosh. This is from Bust a Move 4 for the Sony PlayStation, or also known as Puzzle Bobble 4. This is the theme of Tam-Tam, composed by Rimiko Horiuchi. Oh my god.
Yeah, this one. So this goes back a little bit further. So in 98, I think it was 98 or the end of 98, I went to visit my aunt, my uncle, my cousins that were living in London. And of course, at the time, what I was doing, I was working at an arcade. So what did I do in London? I visited every arcade I could find. And I discovered Bust a Move. It was just
That's where you learned about it?
In the arcade, yeah. And I've never really played this game before, but it was really easy to understand. It had the characters from from
Bubble Bobble.
Bubble Bobble, thank you. From Bubble Bobble, the little dinosaurs. And it was just so much fun. And it was a versus game. It was really fun to play. So a lot of the bars that we went to had like little, these little like, you don't see them in the States, but like they're little arcade units that sit on top of the bar, where it's like a TV and like a little like control pad, but like it's designed to sit on top of a bar so that you can sit at a bar stool and play.
Okay.
And this was on a lot of our bars that we went to, and I just played this like to death. You know, just the legal drinking age in London, drinking Guinness, playing Puzzle Bobble. But yeah, and I really fell in love with this game. And when I came back home, I discovered that like versus puzzle games to me were just as entertaining as fighting games. And so the nights that we were doing like fighting games, we would call it like Fight Club or something. We would all get together and play in like people's attics and stuff. And I would bring out Puzzle Bobble and some other games. I got super into it. And I bought this one on the PlayStation, and I got my brother into it. I got my sister into it. I got my mom playing this game. Like we played this at home a lot. Because it's easy to understand, you know? And
Shoot bubbles, make them pop.
Yeah, it's just... And there's there's a little bit of physics to it. This one introduced combos where I think like...
A chain reaction where you can make the bubble shoot back up.
Yeah, the chain reactions, which were really interesting. Like I wish they would have brought that back into later versions of the game, because I don't think they ever did. And if they did, I don't know how where it was hidden. But when Christy and I started dating, and then later when we got married, we were playing a lot of like some classic PlayStation games. I introduced this to her, and we just played this non-stop. And we were talking about this earlier today, where it was a time in our lives where we weren't like, we had jobs and we had a place to live, but like the responsibility level wasn't so high, and so we felt it was just so much fun just to play this game a lot, and we would, and then you were, and then like, yeah, and then actually, I think that was at the same time I was introducing you to her, and we played this a ton.
Because I got it. I was like, wait a minute, I got competition now. Let's go.
This is so much fun, and it really is a very similar play style to that one game that you like, on
Magical Drop.
On Neo Geo, Magical Drop. Very similar to that, but definitely more like geometry based, because you're bouncing bubbles off the walls and you're trying to get them in the right spot.
This game, I will say,
I played this so much. So yeah, like for me, it means so much to me because it was introduction of the competition with puzzle games, and also like it reminds me of like the early time dating with my wife.
I can honestly say that it ties. I get a little bit of that in mind too, because like with Puzzle Bobble, the series,
she was really good at this.
Yeah, and it's actually there's an interesting element to it, because like one thing I like about Puzzle Bobble, and it comes across like in my life too, also related because of like Christy there, is that it was a kind of game where a lot of people who typically wouldn't play video games as a whole, let alone puzzle games, could not only get into it, but they become surprisingly good at it. Like. Between like Christy would give you a run for your money in this game, and I have a friend in Michigan who, for all intents and purposes, I could beat her in any freaking game I want. Her name is Leslie. Beat her in like every game.
Okay, weird brag, but okay.
No, well, thump chess.
I'm just joking.
I know. I'm honestly just like, I'm saying it because in a sense it's almost like me saying like time to cushion the blow, because honestly I'm not even sure how true that is. She could probably take me out in a couple of games, but like when Puzzle Bobble hit the scene. Not only was she good at it, but she'd brag about it. Like, she would come up to you and like, you can't beat me at Puzzle Bobble. And I'm sitting there like, what is this? What is this madness? And we ended up playing one night at Anime Central all night. Like, it was like going down to the game room. I can't remember if I was having a bad night or what, because I remember just not feeling particularly great that period. But we hung out in that game room until the sun came up. Just head-to-head Puzzle Bobble, and she was beating the snot out of me. I will never tell her that to her face, but she was beating the snot out of me.
That's
and
funny.
any win I could get, I felt proud.
Yeah.
Like I fought hard for this breadcrumb of a victory. It was amazing.
Oh my god!
And to this day, we trash talk about it.
Was it this version or was it another version?
It was. I want to say it was the Saturn version. Because that's the one that you would typically find in like a lot of game rooms. They'd be like, "Hey, this 2-player Saturn," because they had that classic digga-digga-dit jingle that would play. There was no character choices though, so there was no like counter patterns. It was just here's some bubbles. You better clear them.
Yeah, I think it also was 4-player on the Saturn. There was a N64 version that was 4-player.
Yeah, that was the 4-player one.
Yeah, which was really good to have that. But again, this one version of the game had chain reactions. It had versions of the game where it had a pulley system, and you had to balance the bubbles from left side to right side. So if you were trying to shoot...
Oh, you're right. That was like an added thing for the game.
You were trying to shoot bubbles. You have to match 3 or whatever to make them pop. But if you missed, or if you're trying to add bubbles to make matches on one side, it would start to drop and pull the other side around. It was just so clever, and the chain reactions added so much more strategy to the game, and you could turn it off and on. Mm-hmm. So as you were introducing someone to the game, you could be like, "This is the base game," and then this is all the crazy wackiness you could do.
And for the record, I wish more games like, because I mean, puzzle games aren't as common now unless it's on like a mobile device as of late for reasons I can't fathom. But I wish more puzzle games, when they came out, gave you those social options. You can tweak the gameplay styles to your choice. And like, I want to play with chains. I don't want to play with chains.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's Puzzle Bobble or Puzzle Bobble type games on like mobile devices, but most of the puzzle games you see on mobile devices are either like word games or they're match 3s.
Yeah,
which you just press the button to match the colors. But I will say that later on in our relationship, Christy surprised me with the PS2. And that was...
I remember that, actually. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And I was like, we'll get the new Bust a Move game for the PS2. I see there's a new one. We were at, like, what was it? Electronics Boutique or something. The one that used to be, or it's still there. GameStop. That's GameStop now, on 202. And I picked that up, and the characters were super cute. It was much more cartoony, like really dark lines around the characters.
I loved those. That was the weird one where the cover was like the baby popping gum or something.
Yeah. But it got rid of all of these extra mechanics. The music was a little different, and there weren't as many characters. This game blew me away with how many unlockable characters and people you could be in this game, and they were all doing the same thing, just shooting bubbles. But it was so cool how many. It was like a fighting game. How many characters you could play as. In this one, there was like 6. You know, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
And also the load time was stupid long. I remember that.
See, now you want to go home and try it again. Because, like, I know I still have it in the house. I just remember all the characters were, like, very, like, graffiti-like. Like, they weren't...
Yeah, graffiti. Yeah. It was very, like, chunky lines. Yeah. I think I still have it in my case. When I was selling my Dreamcast games, I think I flipped by it. And I'm like, maybe one day I'll find the PS2 and plug it in.
It's always worth it. And I'm always terrified of my PS2 just not working one day. Because people were talking about it lately. Like, my laser lens just broke. I'm like, don't you dare.
These things are getting old, you know? And
Never!
And these discs, if you don't keep them in good environments, they're going to go too.
Funny enough, that's been surprisingly effective. Like, I was talking to Chris Baines yesterday, actually. He was 2 days ago. He was asking about, like, just discussing, like he's like, name a obscure Sega Dreamcast game. And I'm like, okay. And of course I named a few, but then I was like, I need to go to my library to get the rest. I'm getting old up here. So I went up to the library, pulled up in the binder, and I was like, these discs are still immaculate. Some of these have been here since the 90s. No scratches, no, like, you know, like the thing somebody can get the disc rot where it kind of eats into certain areas of it.
No weird clouds of, like, you know, rot or rust.
Yeah. Like, it's 100% immaculate. I'm like, this is unexpected. Because I remember back in the day, a lot of the talk was putting the games in binders would kill them. But somehow, I mean, these are just doing, they were, again, since the 90s. They're still holding strong over 20 years. So I'm not taking them out of that binder.
Well, I mean, even if your hardware, like, dies, at least you can use that media to run on emulation on our modern PCs, because our modern PCs can emulate all of these, or most of these systems now.
And my either my PS1, PS2, or both, I can't remember, but one day, as a project, Mike and I sat down. I brought every game I owned down to his house, and we imaged all of them and put them on, like, hard drives. He has one, and I have one.
Oh, yeah?
Oh. So it's like, if we ever wanted to just create an emulation box, like, well, here's Purnell's collection. Let's just dump it on the emulation station.
That's new. That is news that I did not. And that is new information.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Influential classics. Revelations and secrets.
Yeah, this is Rhythm and Pixels Revelations. All right. All right, so what's your next one?
Well, now I have to pick this track because after the word choice we just had, I can't not.
Yeah.
This comes from Revelations Persona for the PlayStation 1. It is entitled Dungeon Ice Castle, though I hate that they call it that. And it's called Hidehito. It's by Hidehito Aoki. Welcome back. You are listening to the Dungeon Ice Castle theme. Well, let's just say the Ice Castle Dungeon theme. I don't care what the official name is. From the game Revelations Persona, composed by Hidehito Aoki. So this track plays in two places in the game. It plays in the school, but if you're on the Seebeck route of the game, it plays on the Inverted Worlds version of the school. And if you're on the Snow Queen quest, it plays in the school when it's frozen over. Hence Ice Castle, because the school is frozen over because it's meant to become the new the Snow Queen's castle. Anyway, enough about that. Why in the heck am I talking about Revelations Persona as an influential classic or influential game to me as a whole? Because obviously this game isn't influential to like RPGs as a whole, I don't believe. Though it is the beginning of the Persona series, and we know how that turned out. Bling, 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 bling. But this one in itself wasn't even popular. It sold very poorly. And it didn't even get a lot of coverage for that matter. But what did it mean to me? Well, up until this point, I liked Earthbound a lot. Earthbound was a quirky little modern-day RPG. It was on the Super Nintendo, featuring kids on an adventure to save the world from aliens and paranormal whack-a-majoo. Revelations Persona.
That's officially on the box.
Exactly.
Whack-a-majoo. I wonder what the whack-a-majoo is going to look like in this game.
Along with the dinglehopper and the schmishmabobs, you know. But, so, what the thing is with this game that made it click for me was like, well, first it was the imagery. When I went to the store to go to Electronics Boutique just to see what they had available to purchase one particular day, I saw this game that had like a little weird, like, stylish-looking demon on the front. Title was Revelations, called the Revelation series, and it was Persona. And in the back of it wasn't even very descriptive. The images that they used to describe the game, you know, the flair that makes you want to buy the game was very dark. In fact, I'd say it was very poor marketing.
It didn't look like an exciting disc.
Exactly. It actually looked just
straight
bland.
Yeah, I remember when we were selling it at Electronics Boutique.
But for some reason, the description of the game compelled me because it reminded me of like this modernism that I was craving in games. I started to realize like I would like to, because you know the idea is like you play these games, like all these fantasy games, and, you know, I was like, if I was in the medieval times and I could cast magic and use a sword.
This takes that kind of Tolkien like universe of dwarves and elves, and they live in forests and like castles. But like this
was modern.
Like in Earthbound, it's in a modern world.
But unlike with Earthbound, the thing that made this stand out to me and what drew me even more, which I'll get into in a minute. Actually, I'll get into that in a minute. So, so I would come into the store and I look at this game, but I couldn't quite place what the deal was with it. So I would ask the clerks. I think Rob at the time was one of them. Had, as you know, this was before you were working.
Was it before me?
Yeah. This is 96 or so.
Yeah, that's probably
97.
just before.
I went in there, I'm like, what the heck is this game? And they're like, I don't know what this is. It's just jank. It's just a game. So I'd put it back on the shelf, go back to work. Next day I'd come back, look at it again. And I would keep coming back and look at this game, but since money was tight, I couldn't commit to the buy. So one day I convinced the staff to actually hook up a PlayStation, because they didn't have one. They hooked the whole system up and put the game in just so I could see it. Because I was like, I need to know what the heck this is. There's no information about it out there. And I played it in the store. I played through the entire opening in the store. It took about an hour, but I did it. And I'm like, it hit me like a truck. Like, you're in this game. You start out in the school. These are all kids that are teenagers, like me at the time. And they are playing this really stupid, silly occult game. And while I didn't play silly occult games as a kid, every kid, teenager and otherwise, had dumb games to play, whether it was something as simple as spin the bottle or something as convoluted as, I don't know, hide and punch or whatever. You punch them.
Like a Ouija board or something silly like that, right?
Yeah, and the kids were doing that. And then when weird things started happening, they were going to drugstores and shop.
Hide and punch?
Yeah, we literally played a game where it was hide and seek, but if you got caught, you punched you.
Okay.
So it was like, it just incentivized you to not get found because it hurt when you got found.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, I played weird games as a kid.
Yeah, that's all right.
So we did that, and you go to malls, you go to stores, you would talk to people in their residences, and the villains in the game weren't crazy demons, they were corporations. You were stopping an evil corporation from doing stuff, and the powers in the game weren't magic spells per se, they were inner manifestations of your inner being. They were things that you could conjure up from within, and that gave you power. There was just all these elements of things that I wanted in a game that never existed up till that point. And it literally drove me from that point on for like pretty much most of the games I was seeking out to play in the future had to have some element like that. Like I wanted a game that had modernism, that talked about like adult problems or even late teen problems, because one of the biggest hooks of Persona to me, which doesn't even come up in a lot of the later games, was that if you went on the true route for the Seebeck route, the real antagonist was a demon that was brought on from the self-doubt of one of your classmates. She wanted to die, she was suicidal, she was really sick, and she was hospitalized, and the reason that they were even able to create this pseudo-weird demon-connecting world was because it was tied through her subconscious. Like, you were actually exploring her subconscious the whole game.
So, what we had was like this kind of crazy supernatural world built on the foundation of reality.
Yeah, because
of feelings and drama that real teenagers and real people are going through.
Yes,
yeah.
And like it's amazing because like one plot point towards the end was once you realize what's going on, you realize the girl you've been traveling with the whole time is actually a mental manifestation of the actual girl's world you're inside. It's like it's her ideal form. I wish I was fun and easygoing. I wish people thought I was great to be around. So this was the girl you hung out with. But the real girl was very depressed and angry and bedridden. So you end up having to go to like the sea of her subconscious to convince her that her life was worth living, and that, well, not so much convince her, but she had to realize that for herself. Like, your life's worth living, and we need your help to save everything. So at that point, the ideal fuses with the real, and they kind of become her, just married. And then you end up going to fight the demon that was feeding off of her insecurities, and that's the final dungeon of the game.
That's really cool.
Like, none of the Persona games since then have pulled that mess off. I don't care what nobody says. Like, would I go back and say that the gameplay of Persona 1 was great? It got old. It's too slow now. Like, it's hard for me to go back and enjoy it. But the world building and the narrative and the characters, I will always put them on a pedestal. And that is genuinely what has influenced my taste in gaming from that age 20 plus years in the future to this day.
It really is 20 plus years. So going back to that time, I was not interested in RPGs. I watched my friends play through like Final Fantasies. I've watched my brother play through most of 7, and I tried to pick up 8, and I kind of got into it, so I have like a soft spot for it, but I never really played RPGs until this game. And you know what I'm playing next. So my now
Dragon Warrior.
Yeah, Dragon Warrior. She got me the PlayStation 2. Just surprised me with it. And 2 of the games that I bought were greatest hits, marked down greatest hits of Gran Turismo and Final Fantasy X. And it took me a while to start playing Final Fantasy X, but then once we started playing it together, it just became like it had a hold on us like no other game, and we really, really, really enjoyed it. And I know it's a joke that I talk about it all the time, but you know, I haven't played a lot of games, and as when it comes to RPGs, like I love the music of all of these games, but the truth is I don't play like any of them.
And I mean, I'll do honesty, I like to tease you about FF10, but the reality of it is I also know why you're so connected to it, which is why I'll poke at you, but you'll never hear me go, "Oh, come on, Rob, play a game." It's like, no, I'll just tease you because you picked it.
I'll tell you what, though, because when I was replaying it on the remaster version, like, I get the poking, because it's like, you could be playing anything else.
Anything else right now.
You're playing this game again. But I needed my happy place. I was in a state of mind. I was in a headspace where I really needed to be somewhere that made me happy, and this game always puts me there. So I'm going to play music from the HD remaster because I really love the arranged music for this game. I think it came out really good. This is the Macalania Forest. So this is the theme music. Not in the town, but like in the world as we're traveling through it. From Final Fantasy X, the HD remaster for the PlayStation 4. It's composed and arranged by Masashi Hamauzu. Remember when washing your hands to sing the hymn of the faith twice to make sure that your hands are fully clean.
Zestfully clean, even, some might say.
Oh, man. I mean, this track is already looping, but it really feels like it's still building up to something, which really, I really love this music. This is the Macalania Forest music from Final Fantasy X. This is the HD remaster version, the arranged version for PlayStation 4, composed and arranged by Masashi Hamauzu. And yeah, I just love this game. So I can't remember. I think we started playing it and then put it down and then picked it back up again. And it was just the characters, the arc that Tidus goes through.
He's tedious.
The battle system. I feel like everything is just wound together really tight. And one of the biggest, and we talked about this earlier today, but like I think one of the biggest criticisms that people have, like RPG players have for this game, is how linear it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not a lot of backtracking, there's not a lot of exploration, and that's what I like about this game. I like that it's telling this really clear story. It gets a little convoluted towards the end. These things are a dream, these things are not a dream, or whatever, but like it's not, I mean, this is not Kingdom Hearts level of nonsense, right? This isn't like end of Final Fantasy VII nonsense. Like this is it just tells a clear story from a human perspective, which I really appreciate. Like Tidus's relationship with his father, and Yuna's relationship with her father, and what Yuna must do to save the world, and then also Wakka's relationship with his religion and his worldview, you know, and that his brother was killed in the line of duty against this whole thing. Like it solidifies his essentially like conservative Christian values.
I genuinely feel like the characterization in this game doesn't get enough credit.
It's really I mean, and then of course there's a lot of dumb side stories, but his relationship with Lulu, which is weird because Lulu's relationship with his brother who passed away was
because they actually end up having a kid together, right?
In the future one. So like they still kind of like break apart and do some like, you know, RPG BS like Final Fantasy stuff to stories just to make it there. But like otherwise, there's so much going on. And the score to the entire game is sweeping. It's got a lot of like cool synth sounds. And so the fact that we played through it and then played through it again and then played through it again, it's just something that we really enjoyed together, you know, and she loved it too. I loved it too, because again, like I don't play a lot of RPGs, but this one I'll do.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
Because like, I'll be honest, like it's funny that Final Fantasy 13 is another one that generally gets reviled in the community as a whole, but it was one that I gravitated towards and actually completed. It was the first Final Fantasy game I completed since 7. Keeping in mind, I've played them all, but 13 was the first I actually got to the end of and finished.
You're close to the end of 10. I know you are.
I am. Like, I got to the airship, and I was like about to get the guy you pay money to as an Aeon. But I keep telling myself I'm going to start over and play the remaster and see how I feel, because, you know, I'm kind of lost in like what was happening at that point and what I was doing with the sphere grid.
Yeah, I do wish they would have maybe added some quality of life stuff to speed up some of the battles and maybe like scaled some of the leveling up in the game.
But like I nerfed myself in that game to the point where I wouldn't have noticed those changes anyway, because like if you boot my game up, I have like sphere level 99 for everybody, which means I wasn't spending sphere grid points. Shocker, I know.
Yeah, I know, but then that probably made everything super long. I think
maybe put that work in.
That's another thing, is like I'm used to like pen and paper RPGs, which a lot of these, like especially JRPGs, are based on these American pen and paper RPGs of like, these are your stats. This is your sword that's +6. But in this game, all of the swords aren't plus this or plus that.
It's just, here's your sword.
It's like, here's just a sword, and these are your base stats. And this sword might have like a fire effect, or might have, maybe it does slow on an enemy. But otherwise, you're just you have a grid, and you can choose whether to spend points somewhere on the grid to add abilities or to add to your base stats. And then my first couple playthroughs, honestly, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it. It wasn't until the HD remaster I was really paying attention to the sphere grid.
And I can tell you one thing, though, like,
really interesting.
We were talking about this game in particular earlier, and we were talking about like the element. Actually, I mean, what you just brought up, how you described it now, about how it's like a safe retreat game. You just come back to it when you want to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I can tell you,
Like I wanted to be in that world again. You know, like it's just.
But there's a genuine like connection to that too, because like I think about a lot when I play a lot of games. Like I jump between a lot of RPGs, and you might hear me generally say the more crazy the gameplay system, the better. I like to learn systems and get into it.
Yeah.
But there's a downside to that, which is that if you put it down for a while and you want to come back and experience it again, you got to relearn a bunch of menus, figure out why this sword has like these weird stats that you wouldn't have put on there otherwise, but actually it was because you were in the middle of a project to build this super duper weapon that you forgot about. So now this is just, none of it makes sense. So to come back to it, if you're not starting from the beginning, you're just kind of like, what the hell is this? It's like a science project. You got to relearn the project. But something like this is like, because even jokingly, I was like, I might start over Final Fantasy X. Let's be real. I really don't. If I booted that up again, only thing I'd have to look into is where the last dungeon is, if I really wanted to, because I know how to build a sphere grid. It wouldn't be hard to figure out what I was trying to do with my characters, because most of it would use a friend sphere to move somewhere. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, I gotta tell you this though. The points that you use on the sphere grid max is at 99. You need well over 99 to do anything end game.
Oh yeah. Well, once I get to 99, that's when I start spending them, because I know I'm wasting time otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So I'm not going to waste the time. Trust me on that.
Yeah.
But like I can backtrack and place what I needed to do. And the gameplay systems, aside from the ultimate weapons, which the heck with those stupid things, there's not a lot to relearn. So it really is like a safe bet to go in and just have Waka throwing volleyballs or blitzballs at freaking Arakamex.
They're volleyballs. but with having a game that's so linear, it's really easy to go back to, because it's like Mario. You know, you're just going to go right. Just hold the right button. You know, you're going to go in that direction. So this game, it's like, you can't really get lost too hard, like too easily. I mean, it's hard to get lost. All right, so we're running a little late here. Not late, but like we're running longer than usual. So let's get into your last track.
Well, we're gonna run a while when you get that nostalgia going. So I'm going to tie into this with an obvious pick. Well, not too obvious, but maybe so once you hear it. So you picked from Final Fantasy X. I'm picking from Final Fantasy I. Very first game, and I could have sworn we picked this for the show before. Might check in a second again just to be sure, but. Long story short, if we didn't pick it in the past, this is Matoya's Cave from Final Fantasy I by Nobuo Uematsu, and if I have, well, you'll be hearing something different than that.
No, I don't think so. I don't think we played much from this original title, so
fingers crossed.
Okay.
Welcome back. You're listening to the theme from Matoya's Cave, which means I didn't pick it in the past, from the game Final Fantasy I, composed by Nobuo Uematsu. And real quick, one thing I want to note is that I think it's interesting that I did check back on the influential variant that we did with the Ways Lost composer earlier this year, I think.
The Ways Lost, a ways back.
Ways back. And it turns out that even with the scope of those two styles of episode and the way we described influentials, I only had one repeat game that I had chosen from, and I'm proud of that. That means I'm kicking butt.
All right.
But so Final Fantasy I is one that I think absolutely wholeheartedly belongs on this list for me, and probably for the industry too, honestly. Because Final Fantasy is the first RPG that I can think of where I cared enough to stick with the genre as a whole. Like, I had played Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 by this point, and I'm sure I've played a couple of other like, real rinky-dink ones that just don't come to mind anymore. I'm just being blunt about it. But Final Fantasy worked for reasons I'm not even quite sure of, because originally, I probably told this story like 4 years ago on the show, but that's how long we've been running, baby.
We've been going a while.
For Christmas one year, I told my father, who generally hated video games as a whole, that I wanted Final Fantasy Adventure. I had to have Final Fantasy Adventure for Christmas. Final Fantasy Adventure, for those who don't know, was actually a game in the Seiken Densetsu series. It is actually the game before Secret of Mana.
That was on the Game Boy.
Yes, it was on the Game Boy. It was before Secret of Mana, and it was an action-adventure game. My dad bought me Final Fantasy on the NES instead.
I'm thinking of Final Fantasy Legends.
No, those were Saga games.
Those were Saga games. Okay, I'm sorry.
And so he bought me Final Fantasy 1 on the NES, which was not like that at all. It was a turn-based battle game, RPG, with guys going from right to living on one side of the screen, your party on the right side of the screen. You know, the thing where they were divided by an entire freaking wall.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck is this garbage? I didn't want this for Christmas. But at the same time, the fact that my dad bought me anything game-related that was at full price, mind you, was a testament to something, because he never did that. He hated video games in that sense. After like the Atari and Coleco, he was done with them. So it was like, here's this full price game, not bargain bin Woolworth. Merry Christmas. And I'm like, well, I can't tell him I don't like it. So now I got to try to enjoy it. So I put the game in, I picked my party, I tried to go well around it. I had the fighter, white mage, black mage, and a black belt. That was what I picked. And I'm planning to go on the quest, get these stank crystals, kid. And
at least you had a team that like would actually work.
Oh, I was thinking, baby. I wasn't like 4 fighters.
Yeah.
But
all
like
white mages.
Oh god, people did that as like a psycho challenge and succeeded. I don't know why.
Crazy.
Especially how game worked with having to purchase your magic. That's just a time sink. But I got into this element of the game where for some reason, I think it was the first time I bought a sword that was blue. It was a blue sword I had, it was like a coral sword or something. And I started to feel this connection to the fact that I attack a guy, I see a number, he might die. I level up, I attack the guy, the number is bigger. I could see bigger and bigger numbers. Everything was just calculations of various elements. This spell does this much damage. This spell heals this much damage. If I put this armor on, this calculation decreases by 5%, which now means I take this much less numeric damage.
So it was all like clicking in your head.
All the math. Yeah. I was obsessed with the math. I can't understand
Rob,
what it was.
It's the math.
It's the math.
Rob.
A lot of people say RPGs were about the plot and stuff.
No, it's the math.
And it's the math, because Final Fantasy 1's plot was very hollow. It really was. It was literally, there's a Garland guy, you beat him, he comes back later as chaos.
Protecting the crystals that were saving the world.
Get them crystals for some reason.
Yeah, something like that.
Also, pirates in a town that are jerks, but I barely cared about any of that. I just wanted to see bigger numbers, which is probably why Disgaea clicks for me so well, because Disgaea was like, you like numbers, kid? Well, we just removed the limiter on the decimal
I mean,
points.
this was definitely Squaresoft's, like, their response to Dragon Warriors, the success of Dragon Warrior, and this was their Final Fantasy.
Yeah, literally. For those who don't know, if this game failed, Square would have died.
Yeah,
this was their last shot. Before, what they had, like Rad Racer, King's Knight. There was a number of games they had that just didn't take off. People didn't talk about them. They weren't particularly written about.
But they went all in on this game that was kind of just mimicking what they were seeing in Dragon Warrior.
I don't know. I don't think it was. I wanted to double check, but I actually think they were tying into to straight up this D&D.
Oh, it could have been that too. There's some people much smarter than me probably know more about this, but there's
and me, because I'm speculating.
But there's a huge connection between, again, American like pen and paper Dungeons and Dragons RPGs and JRPGs, like RPGs made in Japan. So I don't know how that happened, but the stats and the attack and constitution and wisdom, all those like little stats and all of those things, like you see them all the time in classic JRPGs, even modern JRPGs. It's all about the numbers.
Yeah, it's all numbers. And stat manipulation.
And then also attacking and having like a random value determine what you're doing. Like, it's essentially a dice roll.
That's
Like,
why when people
yeah.
when you cast spells that just don't quite want to take, people always say, "I'm getting like it's like RNG. I'm getting screwed by RNG."
Yeah,
random number generator.
Yeah, you're rolling dice. Those are your random numbers right there.
And it's
D20.
and it's funny when you actually look into like calculations of random numbers, like just the very different ways you can even do that. Because like you can do like rands of different like seeds, and that's always a predetermined number of like randomization, quote unquote. But then you can do like a computation that randomizes the randomization of the seed, and now you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm getting anymore.
Yeah. Computers aren't going to automatically develop a random number. It has to have like a seed number to generate from that number. So there's always something. And a lot of times, like especially modern games, I think they're using like the clock because it's like a random like microsecond that you're starting the game on. You know, like that'll give you the seed. But sometimes, and especially in roguelikes, like the randomness of the games, like it'll remember the seed so that you can have multiple people play the same randomly generated stage at the same time.
And it's funny you said, because like I can't think of like any particular games that did this, so don't quote me on it. But I know that I've played games where this happens, where like you might have a game where you play it and you fight a boss and you're like, crap, he's beating the tar out of me. Screw, I'm gonna start over. And then you go back to your previous save and you go in and do the same actions and you get the same results. Like, you always miss with this attack and he always crits you with this attack. You're like, why is that? It's because it's running off of a seed that was pre-generated before you even saved the game.
Yeah, you're already there. You're already in it. So you gotta grind, I guess. This game's all about grinding.
Yes,
this one is all about grinding. All right, so we're gonna grind in onto a halt of the show because we're going into the part of the show we call the bonus round.
Bonus round, bonus round.
Ooh, that's fun.
Let's get down.
Yeah. Don't stop.
Bonus round.
Don't stop.
Bonus round. Yeah. Eddie Vedder.
That was the Eddie Vedder version. The bonus round is the part of the show where we play covers and remixes and arrangements on our theme. And for the bonus round, I am going to play a track remixed from Zelda Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Game Boy.
Oh, right.
This is the track Tal Tal Heights, and it's remixed by Vector U, Qumu, and Noteblock.
Oh, I like Noteblock.
Yeah, Noteblock's
like
really
Mario
good.
3.
Yeah, Noteblock and Qumu I'm really, really big fans of. So this is a really pretty sweet remix. that was the Telltale Heights remix by Vector U, Qumu, and Noteblock. And I picked this because Link's Awakening for the Game Boy was my first Zelda game. And actually my only Zelda game for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, and I got into it for a little while when I was younger, but it wasn't until like we would go on these long car trips and I would just play it nonstop, like in the back seat, hanging on to as much sunlight as I could through the window.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one day, I think we were driving up to New York, we were camping or something, and we were going to visit my grandpa up in PA, further out in PA, Carlisle, and I was discovering all of the side quests you could do, where you had to like go and like you had to find this item to give to this person who gave you this item to give to this person.
Oh, that blasted quest. It started with the Yoshi doll, I think.
Yeah, the Yoshi doll. Like we would go down the river, and I had no idea any of this existed in the game. I had played this a ton, never really like got to the end of it, but I had stopped the main quests because I was suddenly just doing this weird side quest, and it just kept going and going, and it didn't really tell me where to go next. I just kept running into it, and that really just held my imagination of like how much there was to do in these little games, you know?
Yeah, Link's Awakening is
really interesting.
It's disturbing in its own way too, because like
disturbing.
Well, not your story. I mean, like just the game, the idea of how you described it, based on something that came up recently, where like they recently released a remake of it on the Switch. Right?
Yeah.
And they didn't add anything. They didn't take anything out.
They updated like they made the graphics like kind of like interesting. Right? It was like
it looks really nice,
really modern,
like,
right?
Very modern, but. What you come to realize, if you come back at it with an adult mindset and a familiarity of what the game is like and how it plays, it's ridiculously short.
Oh,
that includes doing all the trades.
Oh my god,
and everything.
It took me forever to do all that stuff.
Agree. Like, in fact, I'm trying to remember what element, whether it was the trade or something else, but it irked me because the original game's design, the way you would get the best sword was by way of the secret seashell quest, which was you could every secret seashell take them to the seashell house and you put them in this like calculator, and when it gets to the top, you get the sword. But the thing that they don't tell you is that for every 5, I think it is that you got, if you put them into the seashell house, it would give you a seashell. But if you get one more than that, you don't get it. And you need those reward seashells to get the max amount of seashells to get the sword. So if you don't come back to that house after every 5, you're just not going to get it.
Oh, man.
You're collecting seashells for nothing. Literally nothing.
Oh, man. What a weird mechanic. Like, what a weird, like addition, subtraction, like, and of course that stuff isn't spelled out to you.
Not even in the least.
Not even, you're just like, oh, I got this and I can do this, and now it's all broken. Now
like a part of me wants to say that there was probably like a little notch on the dial that just says like, like you typically hit a hammer and it goes up. Like maybe someone said you can get something here, but even then, a kid would think if I get more than that, I should still get the reward because I'm going past it.
Yeah.
But no, you just don't get it.
That was such a good game, though, and clearly it was based off of Link's Awakening. Like the game, like art style and everything looked like Link's Awakening.
Well, it is Link's Awakening.
I'm sorry. No, this is what we play. This is
Link's Awakening is Telltale.
Link to the Past. Link to the Past.
I must probably Link to the Past. Yeah, it was meant to be like a micro version of it because capitalize on the popularity, but now it's on your Game Boy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it's much shorter, clearly. But man, when I played it, I had no idea.
It's such a good one though. Like, and to this day, like I think that Link's Awakening and then Oracle of Seasons and Ages are probably some of the best Zelda games because most specifically Seasons and Ages had that Capcom influence, and like the dungeon items were pretty weird. Some of like the items that you would use to traverse the world got weird, like the Rod of Seasons, and then in Link's Awakening you had that cool tower. You like had to break the pillars, and you made the entire tower come down. Like stuff like that.
That's a game I should go back and try to play through. I feel like I got pretty far, but then for whatever reason I stopped.
At this point in life, you should because it's quick.
It's for us now. Yeah, it's quick and just walkthroughs, and people know all about it, so I can probably find my way through pretty easily.
Oh yeah,
but it's amazing. All right, so what's your track?
So this one's gonna probably seem obvious to anybody when I say it, but so be it. This is a remix from Ys Book 2. Though you can type Ys Book 1 and 2 because, again, I played it on the Turbo CD, that was the title. And this track is the Camapniel of Lane HRHM arrangement. And it was arranged by Nasty Children. I don't know.
All right, let's take a listen.
Who's up for ominous bells? Bell tolling, baby.
For whom the ease tolls.
No! This is the Camapniel of Lane HRHM arrangement from E's Book 1 and 2, composed by Nasty Children, or arranged by Nasty Children. That's just a name that just feels weird to say.
It's arranged by the Nasty Children.
Just some nasty kids.
No, it's actually, you find that on the official Falcom Music channel on YouTube.
Which shocked the tar out of me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize that they actually would host like remixes and covers there, but there we are. I gotta love the Falcom Music channel. It's just gold. But yeah, I feel like this is like almost one of the most obvious things to put on the show. But yeah, Ease is clearly one of the most influential games for me in the sense of just wanting, like, normally back then when a game got held off for me and I had to resume it later. It was usually more about just general game progression. Like, I want to get cool new powers. I want to upgrade the guy. I almost beat Dr. Wily, but now I got to stop playing.
Dr. Wily.
Yeah, Dr. Wily. Mega Man. I'm Elmer Fudd, and I'm your professor. Anyway, so the thing about Ys, though, was like, this is probably the first one where I played it, and I had to stop playing it on account of family obligations. And I didn't care. It wasn't about the powers at this point. It was about the narrative. Like, I became enthralled with the world of Ys because, contrary to what people may understand about the franchise, the original 2 games was actually a relation and about the country of Ys. Ys is a place, not just the title of a franchise.
It's not just a state of mind.
it's a locale, baby. And you're Adol, and you're pretty much helping out all these different people, but at the same time, you're also fulfilling a quest to reach the continent of Ys, which is under siege by a demon army, and you are ultimately trying to destroy the Black Pearl, which is powering the demon army, which will then cast Ys back to the ground, whereas it currently is a floating continent. There's a particular element of the game where you are trying to save the descendants of the great sages from the demon army, because part of their prophecy to become, to revive the dark demon Dharm or whatnot is the murder of all the descendants of this sage line. And you're in a particular quest to rescue the final descendant, who is currently locked up in a bell tower. Though, correction, I just realized, I don't think you even know at the time that she's a descendant. You just know that they're going to sacrifice this girl from this town as a general sacrifice. So you are running through this bell tower with the goal being to reach the top and save her prior to execution. And as you're running up, there are no monsters to fight. Nothing. It's just this tense music playing and clouds swirling in the background as you ascend stairs after stairs after stairs. It's a weird element of design when you think about it. Like an action RPG where the dungeon has no monsters in it.
It's this music?
It's this music.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Unarranged, of course. But
so it's almost like it's wanting you to hear this music to raise the tension, but it extends the dungeon without any battles, so that it can you maybe feel it that much more. I
think it worked. I think you're accurate, because in addition to the run, every once in a while the game will actually stop and tell you the bell rung, because you're waiting for the like 5 rings.
Right.
It stops.
Talked about that. Yeah.
So when you get to the top, one of the villains shows up and he's like, "Hey, way to try to get up here and everything," in a more ominous tone, of course. And then he's like, "But you can't do it. You are going to fail." Then the bell's going to ring, and that's it. So the bell rings, the girl dies. And at this point, my dad's like, "Yeah, I Goldberg, get downstairs." I'm like, "I don't want to go. I just failed at saving the girl. I want to know what's going to happen next. Demon's coming back.
Gotta go to I Goldberg.
Gotta go to I Goldberg. Put your, I was back in this, like, got one more year. Put your pants on and get downstairs, put some shoes. If you don't, she's behind." I'm like, crap, I got to turn it off. So I'm all sad, out in the snow at I Goldberg, getting boots. And all I can think of is, what's going to happen when I get home? She's dead, and the Demon King is back. I want to know where the game's going to go. I want to know. I was like 12 or something when this happened.
Like, that's going to mess your brain up.
I was
a kid.
I was anxious. Like, where am I going to go? What's going to happen next? But I was so enthralled by the narrative. And to this day also, when people ask me, like, narrative that drew you in the most, I always go back to Ys 1 and 2. Always. It's just perfect in that regard. So, like, I think this classifies as like one of my most influential to me games. It's hands down. I'll go into detail more if you ever want to know. You can always call in and write. I'll tell you.
All right. Well, anyway, that's for more information about I Goldberg and other sporting goods stores that don't exist anymore. Go to rhythmandpixels.com. We're gonna have links to all of our remix artists, Bandcamps, and SoundClouds, and everywhere you can go get this music and support the artists
and purchase boots.
All right, thank you for joining us on episode 24-8 of Rhythm and Pixels. These are the games that influenced us personally, not you.
Not that guy over there.
Not him, not the person in the corner who's been staring at me. That's a ghost. No, these are our influential games. These are the games that made us.
Now, honestly, at this point, short of us doing one more variant of like influential games from our adult years, because I could go with that. Influential classics is done.
Mine work. Yeah, I think so. I think these are my my young adult influential classics.
Because all of mine I kept to below. Like these were all games I played before I was like 15 or so. Like I was younger.
Yeah, mine were all like after I was maybe 17 or 18.
Correction, to tell you that Persona was 16. But
oh, right. I keep forgetting how old that game is sometimes.
It's been a while.
Really good. So do you have any idea what we want to do for our live streamed episode?
I still didn't think about it. Crap, I don't know how.
We'll post about it online somewhere, and then we'll talk about it on the next episode. Our next episode is with games audio producer Chell Wong.
All right.
We're going to have a good time with them, and we're going to talk about... they've got some crazy ideas for a topic.
We were like, I was running with the idea like anything goes martial arts piloting.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And Shell was like, pilots and stuff. So I don't know, but it's going to be some variant of those two. Yeah. It'll be good.
It'll be fun. It's always a good time. So look out for that episode coming up. But if you have any track suggestions or topic suggestions, or if you want to talk about your own influential tracks, we'd love to hear about it. And the best way to get a hold of us is by email.
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com.
And if you would like more information about our show, a full track listing from all of our episodes, and access to everything else that we're doing. This is access to all of our first episodes too, which I don't think exist on iTunes or Spotify. So that's the only way to get them is through the website.
rhythmandpixels.com.
And you can check us out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. It's Rhythm and Pixels, all one word. Usually we have a group on Facebook called the Rhythm and Pixels Chat. It's just us kind of just hanging out and talking. We have a Discord server for Rhythm and Pixels. Get it on the website. There's a link right there. You can join right up. And there's a bunch of people talking about games and game music and life. All that's happening there.
I had an idea for an episode.
Oh.
Just clicked. Don't know why. The general topic will be solstice.
Okay.
But, of course, it could be, like, the tracks could be variants of, like, night tracks or darkness tracks. Just like, because, obviously with solstice represents as, like, a shift where we get less daylight. Because evening kicks in quicker. So you can go nuts with that. Again, like darkness, evening, night.
Gotcha, yeah.
Sleeping, all of that.
We can celebrate the solstice together for now.
That's right. Make it fun.
Yeah.
Make it slumber.
Oh, and don't forget we have our radio station on YouTube. It's the 24/7 8-bit and 16-bit radio stream. So go check that out. youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. And that's it. And if you want to support the show, just tell people about it. You can post about it, share it on Facebook or to your family. You can make T-shirts out of us.
Burn it into your lawn.
Yeah, get tattoos. Tattoos of our faces.
Please do.
On your body.
That's right. One where I'm wearing shades.
Yeah, and then get outside and move your body.
Work body.
You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. And there you get access to prequel episodes once a week. You get access to a live streamed recording once a month. You can also get little extras for the YouTube radio station, and then we also like to say hi to you at the end of every episode. And so we'd like to thank That Nick Walker and The Last Rican, Mike Myers, Davey Cakes, Bedroth of the VGM Very Good Music Podcast, who was on last week's episode, Justin Schneider.
Got it!
From Zivijum Radio.
Oh, Jesus.
Sonic Medley, Taco, Harold Howard, Dave Taylor, Reinhard Selkova, Andreas Milberg, Dan Loughton, Phantom Jest, Steve Miller, The Autistic Gamer 89, Cameron Worma, Christopher Shenstrom, Bobby Arson from One Up Funk, Wicked Sephiroth, Carlos from the Heroes 3 podcast, Michael Bridgewater from the Forever Sound Version VGM podcast, and Brian Pitt. So thank you all very much for your continued support of our little show.
Thank you very much. And worth mentioning, though, I got to look at the calendar. We do have a good number of submissions for the contest. So at this point, now it's just a matter of choosing the time to do the episode. And I already have an idea of how the episode will play out, so that'll be cool. I'll tell Rob about it after this because I don't want to say it on the show proper.
Okay.
But I think it'll be a cool element. And then, of course, during the episode, we'll announce who wins the cool garb.
Okay. We'll probably do that after our live stream show, which I think is good because that's kind of like the announcement of the winner.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for listening to the show, Rhythm and Pixels. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Purnell.
Have a great week.
And remember, it's kind of like how we just mentioned in the show, and I think we even had a Patreon episode that kind of ties into it too, but games that mean much to you or are influential to you are personally yours and yours alone. Don't let anyone tell you that a game that is inspiring and influential to you is a joke or a terrible game, because in that regard, at least, their opinion doesn't matter. All that matters is that the game does what it needed to do for you at the time that made it influential in the first place. Now, if you want to talk about historical or for the industry and whatnot, that's another thing. Yeah, you can get vicious and tooth and nail on that. That's how it's supposed to be. But when it comes to personal influence, no one holds domain over that. That's your choice, your decision. And that goes for a lot of other things in life too, for that matter, honestly. So it's all about personal feelings. Embrace them and be content with them.